wasn't sure at that point if it was too soon to start a PhD. One of the things my mom said, if the PhD is your tool to greater things, do it while you're young. All those ideas that I aspired to was a dream job for me. So I work with WHO and Harvard University. Sometimes the goals we set for ourselves are the toughest. So it's not, nobody has it all. Take a day at a time and just keep going.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to get all the latest updates. Hi everyone, my name is Anita and I welcome you on Inkpothub Media. Today I am going to be with Kheya, who is working with Goa Institute of Management as an associate professor in a very interesting area, healthcare management. Hi Kheya, thank you so much for accepting our request.
Hi Anita, thank you so much for having me.
Kheya, you are working with the Goa Institute of Management, and I learned that Goa Institute of Management is the first institute in India which started healthcare management, PGDBM, and also healthcare, focusing healthcare research as well. How are you finding this place, and what has been your journey so far? Please tell us about it.
Right. So Anita, for me, it's strange, but right in class 12, I knew that I wanted to work in health. And although I didn't know the word public health at that time, I knew I didn't want to be a doctor, but I wanted to work in population health. And I looked for ways to sort of do that. And I chose my subsequent sort of degrees based on that understanding. But it was only when I, was completing my bachelor's that I knew about the Master of Public Health program. And I remember the moment that, I was looking up courses and I looked at the Master of Public Health description of, what it entails. And in that moment, I knew that that's exactly what I wanted to do, And so for me, the healthcare space, the health systems, public health have always been an area of passion where I see myself as. The research career is not typical, I think, the way I see it, because when I look at fellow researchers who've always known that they wanted to get into academics and research, sometimes it's a little different. But for me, the journey was right after my master's, I started working. But during my master's, I developed this understanding that for anything in policy, like I knew I wanted to do work in health policy, health systems, but I also understood the importance of evidence-based policy, evidence-based practice. That's something we were given to understand when we were studying public health, because it's a science, and all health policy must be evidence-based. And so I understood at that point that I had to have research skills to generate that kind of evidence and knowledge, and also to use it, to use it in the right way, to develop the right kinds of programs and policies. So that seed was sown. I went from my master's to work, and then I got this opportunity, the DSC Inspire Fellowship for a full-time PhD. And at that time, I wasn't sure if it was yeah, so I wasn't sure at that point if it was too soon to start a PhD, because I thought maybe I need a little bit more of work X to understand things on the ground before I get into a PhD. But just a plug here is that, one of the things my mom said, if the PhD is your tool to greater things, do it while you're young, because it's easier, it's an arduous process, and it's just easier when you have lesser responsibilities to finish it. So if you're getting this opportunity, it's an excellent fellowship. Take it up now, finish it off, and then do whatever else you want to do. And that was excellent advice. My mom also has a PhD, and she did it having 4 kids. Yeah, so I think it was, of course, it depends on people's circumstances, and maybe it's not, blanket sort of advice, whatever works for you. But yes, it does help when you're young and you don't have too many other responsibilities, because it is a difficult journey, an exciting one, but a difficult one. And you have to be able to persevere without too many other pressures, And so I got into my PhD, I finished that. And before I'd submitted my thesis, when my fieldwork and my analysis was complete, I got this opportunity at Niti Aayog. And it was actually the planning commission when I applied and when I interviewed and got the position. By the time I joined, it became the Niti Aayog. And that was a chance for me to, use all the evidence-based policy and all those ideas that I aspired to. It was a dream job for me. I'd always had this respect for the planning commission and wanted to work there. And so I got to, really use my research training through the PhD and all the other knowledge that you gather when you're doing a PhD. It's not just research, you're doing so much. You're interacting with students, you're doing field work, so you're understanding so much about the health system. So all of that was stuff that I could bring into the work at Niti, which was extremely exciting.
Okay.
And, just to sort of, from there to come to GIM, what was that sort of link? So, at Niti, because you're working, small teams, but handling health is a huge sector. There are so many different things you're working on. So it's extremely exciting, but after a point, I realized that I wanted to go deeper into certain areas that were of interest to me. I wanted to understand them better. I wanted to develop expertise. And that's where, an academic opportunity helps a lot. And so for me, GIM was that opportunity. I hadn't planned on coming back to academics post Niti, but when I got that opportunity, I saw it as being a way in which I could, go deeper into these certain areas through research, through consultancy work, and work further on my specific areas of interest. And that's where GIM fit in. It also happened to be home for me. I hadn't been home. Yeah, so Goa is where I'm from, but I hadn't been home in 14 years. I had never planned on coming home because honestly, I didn't think I would be able to do public health work in Goa. But this was an opportunity from heaven, I think, because it just kind of brought both these things together, the personal front and the professional front. And I was nervous because going from Niti to GIM was something that I was like, is this the right step? But I knew that I was doing it for the right reasons. And so I believed that it could work out and I had to at least give it a chance. And that's what I did. And I'm super grateful that that it happened.
Right,
so, yeah.
right. They've also worked with the World Health Organization and School of Public Health from, I think, at Harvard University. If you can share a detail of maybe one project or anything which you think that you can share with us.
Sure. So my work with WHO and Harvard University School of Public Health, T.H. School of Public Health, the two different kinds of work. With the WHO, I started working in 2019 when the Ayushman Bharat, the Pradhan Mantri Arogya Yojana scheme was launched. And at that time, the National Health Authority wanted work done on early implementation experiences with the scheme. And WHO was funding and providing technical support to the NHA on these various areas. So we were, a couple of institutes, organizations, and GIM was one of them. So I got that project and worked on it with colleagues from GIM. So we have a healthcare management team, and we're a young team. So it's really nice that we can work together along with my colleagues. We did this project on understanding early implementation experience with the trust and insurance model of scheme implementation. And so we started with that. We did that project first, and we presented those results to the NHA. All of that work was found to be useful. And then there was a second round of studies that were done. So we've been working on PMJ on a couple of our projects. We also did some work for the government of Assam, also with WHO. And all of this work is really in the area of health financing. So these are all, publicly funded health insurance schemes, and they cover the area of health systems financing. So that's one area of work. And the other area of work with the Harvard School is a little more recent, which I started over a little more than a year now. And this is on looking at payment processes for frontline health workers. So in India, we have ASHA workers who are the grassroots level health worker and a very important building block of the public health system. And we are looking at the payment process for them because they're paid incentives, and also understanding the impact of digitization. And if that can sort of improve efficiency, improve timeliness, improve worker motivation, and overall health system performance. So that's the work that I'm doing with the Harvard School, and that's part of larger work that the school is doing across different developing countries in Asia and in India. So I'm doing the India case study on that.
Okay, nice. Very interesting research work you are doing. I also saw a couple of papers written by you in this healthcare management and financing and public health. I have another question for you because you're coming from this space and we all are experiencing a very difficult medical emergency. So, which is COVID, and we have seen for the past 2 years how the world has changed and how the systems have changed. From a researcher's perspective, I want to know maybe 2 or 3 areas wherein the healthcare management research will evolve in the coming times, or will have another 5 or 6 years. What kind of research a researcher should consider for PhD to pursue in this space of healthcare management? What are your thoughts on that? Maybe 2, 3 areas, if you can talk about.
Sure. So, I think COVID sort of, there are two sides. One is that COVID showed very clearly some of the issues that we were always facing, but which were not as well known. And of course, it also gave rise to areas of work that we needed to focus on more. So while, there is going to be a lot of focus now on digital health and, those sorts of interventions, their applicability, the role of analytics, predictive modeling, all of that, I think those are areas that are going to get a big thrust now, and that's always going to be very exciting to work on. We see that even organizations that hire us students are focused on healthcare IT, analytics, all of those work. So there's a big focus on that, and that's definitely an area to work on. On the other hand, you also see that, certain very fundamental things which we need to strengthen in India are things that are going to continue to be worked on. Basic health systems work, health systems resilience. For example, surveillance, disease surveillance. I think one of the things that COVID showed us was that, surveillance systems are extremely important. They help you firstly detect an outbreak and understand its spread, but also then put in place preparedness and response measures. And I think pandemic preparedness and response is going to be an area that's going to get a lot more work done in the coming years. And in the overall, building resilience means also having systems that can cater to the needs of care. And so, SDG, one of our SDGs in health is about universal coverage. And this is a global sort of objective for health systems globally. So, a greater thrust on understanding where we are at in terms of both primary healthcare. So understanding models for comprehensive primary healthcare, how we can strengthen that in India, where we're at and where we need to go, how do we make it better, evaluating our current schemes. Those are things that are going to be important to do because these goals are 2030 and we're not very far from them. And things in health take time. Change doesn't happen overnight in health. So the work has to be done well in advance. So comprehensive primary care, and also, looking at our schemes that are aimed towards universal coverage. So, schemes like the PMJ, Ayushman Bharat are aimed towards universal coverage. We still have a long way to go in terms of these schemes, but understanding them, assessing them, redesigning, and moving forward. So the impact of all these publicly financed health insurance schemes, the populations they target and their effectiveness, all of this is going to be areas that will really be heavily researched and worked upon because they're very current, and they have practice relevance in the immediate term. So yeah. So for me, these are really the areas, and I may be sort of also I'm talking about the areas also that I sort of
you
work
in
on.
those spaces, yes.
Yeah, and I see the quantum of work that's being done, and it has increased so much, and it's great because these are very real problems that we're dealing with right now, which have to be tackled, and it's great to see people sort of working on this.
So your own PhD was in disease surveillance. I saw it on the website.
Incidentally, it was, and it's really funny actually because when I started my PhD, and the topic in itself came from the experiences with H1N1, the swine flu outbreak. So I was doing my PhD at Pune University, and the first death due to swine flu happened at a hospital in Pune, and so that was kind of the epicenter of the outbreak at that time, and we realized very at that point. I remember my guide and I were talking, and we said that we didn't know community level transmission was happening for H1N1 till that first death was reported and attributed to swine flu. And that's because we didn't have surveillance, we didn't have data coming in from the private sector. And that was a big gap. It's quite unfortunate that not much has moved in that area from then to now, because I saw those similar issues during COVID-19. And it was actually very, although I hadn't continued, because I moved from disease surveillance to more of, health systems financing and that work, but it's very much an area of passion for me because that's where I started my entire research. And it was really disheartening to see that we hadn't made as much progress as we should have by now, to deal with the second pandemic. And that's why I say that, these might not be new areas of work, but the understanding about how important they are has sort of grown now. And so therefore, I hope to see a lot more work happening in these areas.
Okay. So Kheya, I think it's very important for all of us to consider healthcare as a primary research domain, because we all can somehow from different domains, be it from marketing or HR or finance or IT or any other space, we can definitely relate it around healthcare management. And I believe that you are going to help them to design their research career in these spaces.
Surely.
Moving towards International Women's Day, and we at Inkpothub, we celebrate March as celebrations of women researchers. So I want to know from you, do you think that we need to have such days in our life wherein we celebrate women every day, or do we really require that special day? So from your perspective, your thoughts, if you can throw some light.
So, I think it is important to celebrate these days. There are a lot of us, and I consider myself one of those people who, at least definitely while growing up and getting my education and entering into my professional space, didn't really have to face the kind of biases and limitations that so many women, not only in this country but globally, face. And so we consider myself in the minority of those lucky and privileged people. But I was exposed to a lot once I moved out of home, and when I also sometimes talk to students, and of course when I'm doing my field work and looking at the status of women there. And so while for some of us sometimes these issues are not as limiting on a day-to-day basis, they are very much there, of course. And so it is important to take stock of that, at least, and I don't think one day sort of is enough, obviously, But having that one day, even if it's symbolic, sort of just reminds everyone that there is an issue and it needs to be addressed. And in your context, what can you do to address it? So I think that significance remains. That's very relevant. And in the professional world, it's extremely relevant. There are issues that, I see now, and I kind of, which I didn't sort of, you'd hear about these things, but to be exposed to them maybe later in life is a learning. And I think that, it still matters, for everybody to reflect on these things and to be able to think about what they can do, no matter where they are, to address the limitations that women still face in the world today.
Yeah. Okay. So my next question is your advice. What would be your advice to young potential women researchers?
So I think, the main thing would be to not let things, or, what to be the biases, what to be the problems, don't let them, of course, limit you. Because no matter what context, and I do understand that people come with different backgrounds and contexts, and therefore the challenges are different, and I may not be able to speak to all of those, but don't let those things sort of hold you back, and because we really have unique skills as women. We have both the ability to be perfectionists and to multitask. So while we want to be perfect at everything we do, we inevitably have to multitask, and the ability to do that comes. So if let your goals be your own. Don't let them be the expectations of anybody around you. Don't let them be the standards that anybody else sets for you. Because when you measure yourself up to what you have set to be your own goal and what you have set to be your own standard, that's really the only way to move upwards. And it's also the only way to be happy, because to really feel a sense of fulfillment, I think that you have to compare yourself to only what, you are and what you want to be. Not to anybody else's sort of expectation of what you must do. And that's whether it's what you're doing professionally or on your personal front or whatever, right? Because society has all these expectations and all of that. But and sometimes the goals we set for ourselves are the toughest. So it's not like we're setting easier goals. So don't be tough on yourself. Understand that you can't, nobody in this world has it all. That doesn't, I used to think that only I think that, but I hear more and more successful women saying that to be true, that, nobody has it all. And even if you think they do, it's not necessarily true. You can't really have it all, but you've got to decide what you want and sort of set those goals on the various fronts for yourself and measure yourself up to that. And that will truly give you a sense of fulfillment.
So there is a book by Sheryl Sandberg. Her book is Lean In. So Lean In talks about the same principle that you can't have it all. We have to compromise based on our decisions, which we make all the time. Moving to the next question, which is, do you feel overwhelmed? And what do you do when you feel overwhelmed?
Yes.
Okay, what do you do then? What is your strategy to overcome that overwhelming feeling?
Yeah, so, I think when I feel overwhelmed, for me, it's important to, in that moment, to remind myself that you've got to take a day at a time. And, don't try to sort of, sometimes you tend to beat yourself up or feel like I've taken on too much or am I doing it wrong? In that moment, don't assess. In that moment, take a day at a time. And just keep going till, that moment is over. After that moment is over, assess maybe if things could have been different in terms of the numbers of things you've taken up, your deadlines, your commitments, all of that, because that does help also in self-improvement, right? so it's important to assess, but don't assess in the moment, because that usually puts more pressure on you. And so therefore, for me, I mean, also for me, my faith is very important, and I derive a lot of strength, maybe all of my strength that way. It's always been a part of my life right from the time I was a kid, and I believe that whatever I'm doing has a purpose that has been given to me. So when I think about that in my moment of feeling overwhelmed, I know that it will be okay, because I just have to do my part, which is to keep working and do whatever I can, and things will sort of sort themselves out. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, that is really what keeps me going. Okay. And yes, later I do self-assess, because we all have things to learn about our how to manage our workloads, and but yes, in that moment, that's what keeps me going.
Okay, so you seem to be very, very, very organized and productive, and you dedicate your time. Assign yourself your time in calendars. So I want to know, what is that one absurd habit of yours that increases your productivity levels?
I don't think I have one absurd habit. I mean, my friends say that I'm a workaholic. Maybe that's partly true. I have a lot of support from family and my husband to sort of work a lot. But I think the balance part is important. Also sort of to be productive, you've got to balance it out. You've got to, say that this time is only for family, self, and your life, and this time is for work. And I think when I give myself those sorts of deadlines, I find myself to be more productive, because I look forward to the time off, and I enjoy the time that I'm working, and I'm not letting one spill into the other. And I'm not saying that this is perfect, sometimes of course it doesn't work, but it does help. And I realized this, especially in the last few years, ever since being married and stuff, that you have to set these boundaries, and having these different components of your life together is what makes it so much more fun and enjoyable, right?
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so this is compelling me to ask you another question. So because when we see that we compartmentalize our stuff, our daily routine, and different segments, tell me, what are those things which you have purchased under 5,000 in the past 3 months to help you make more productive?
Probably my last Swiggy order or something. Under 5,000. I don't know, maybe. So my husband and I are huge foodies. We're always trying new food. So probably one of the meals that we had, that we have a checklist which we sort of a list of places we want to go to and have a meal at and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's really makes any sense, but those moments and doing those things together are very very, very useful. they sort of keep the balance going, and they help.
Do you prefer a Kindle or a physical book?
I prefer a physical book any day.
Thanks, Kheya. I'm so glad that you spoke about your journey and some interesting insights from your own life as a researcher, as a productive person. So I'm really happy to learn about it. Thank you so much. It's great to see you all here. Thank you for watching our work. If you have not subscribed to Inkpothub Media, then please hit the bell icon and subscribe to our channel and support research celebrations in India.
Press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.